And where's my topic for today? There we go. Okay. You know that when you're Jewish, never a week goes by without something to rattle you. That's sort of par for the course. All right, fractious week for us Jews. There was the uproar on comments by Whoopi Goldberg, and there was the removal of the popular mouse on the Shoah from a school library in Tennessee. I'm sorry, it's Tennessee. And then an attack on Israel's right to exist by Amnesty International. That's really the red flag one. And Marcelo said, you know, you've got to talk about it, So I will. I'm going to go from the easy to the heavy. So the easy one was the removal of mouse from middle school curriculum. Now, very interestingly, all of these things grab our attention as Jews. Does anybody else see it? My grandson, one of my grandsons in high school, so he talks to his history teacher. Did you hear what's happened with Whoopi Goldberg said? And he says, no, what's happening? What did Whoopi Goldberg say? And see, for us as Jews, well, ABC canned for 2 weeks for this, you should know, and explain what happened and so on. So people, a history teacher, you would expect sort of should be aware of what's happening around outside, but if you're not in Jewish circles, you don't watch this as much. We see it. So start from the issue of removing the book mouse from middle school curriculum. So personally, to tell the truth, I couldn't relate to the novel. It's a graphic novel, rather comic book, using cat and the mouse scenario, although, you know, George Orwell did it very well with Animal Farm, but then I'm not the audience. And for young adults in general, this metaphor can be more powerful than the literal, right? The imagery, it taught with mice and cats and the pigs and so on, like an Animal Farm, can be very moving. So here is Art Spiegelman, the creator, and here is the ad for mouse on Amazon, if you want to order it. Not cheap, hardcover 22, something paperback's almost even more expensive. How you go from paperback being cheaper, more expensive, I don't know, but that's on Amazon. And here's the description here. Pulitzer Prize winner, right? A graphic novel. This is the definitive edition of the graphic novel, contains most affecting and successful narrative ever done about the Holocaust. Most effective and successful narrative ever done about the Holocaust. Well, interesting. The first masterpiece in comic book history, right? Wall Street Journal, New Yorker, right? I can see it's carrying a full, heavy story in an illustrated version. So, and it's used, very well used. So the school district, though, removed it from their curriculum. Now, was it an act of Holocaust now? Because that's our immediate response. Or was it purely pedagogical decision? What did the Board of Education, this is McKinn County, Tennessee, really do? As I look up, who is McKinn County? And I see this very similar to the county that I grew up in when I went to high school. I went to high school in a small town in West Virginia. Demographics are very similar, right? Mountain country, a lot of poor people, simple people, educational levels, school success levels, income levels, much more close to that of problems in America's inner cities, which we identify with minorities, except this is almost all white. So you understand that in the Appalachians, the problems that we associate with the inner cities, core inner cities, is widespread throughout the Appalachians. You have to keep that in mind. But are these malicious people? Are these vicious people? I grew up with people like that. No, not malicious. So what was going on? Well, here's a statement from the board. Because of its unnecessary use of profanity and nudity in its depiction of violence and suicide, it was too adult-oriented for use in our schools. Right? As a pedagogue, that isn't a weighty issue. These are 8th graders, 7th and 8th graders. When I'm in high school, that's a different story. Is it inappropriate? We can discuss that. So we do not diminish the value of mouse as an impactful and meaningful piece of literature, nor do we dispute the importance of teaching our children historical and moral lessons and realities of the Holocaust. To the contrary, we have asked our administrators to find other works that accomplish the same educational goals in a more age-appropriate fashion. The atrocities of the Holocaust were shameful beyond description. We all have an obligation to ensure that younger generations learn of its horrors to ensure that such an event is never repeated. We simply do not believe that this work is an appropriate text for our students to study. So here's some comments. On the one hand, one board member said the scenes where mice are being hung from trees and children killed is very disturbing. And the book also depicts suicide. And why does the educational system promote this kind of stuff? It's not wise or healthy. He's looking at a parent, or maybe not a parent, but somebody who sees children, knows children. On the other hand, an instructional supervisor who teaches history shared a different sentiment. She said she believes the book represents the brutality. There's nothing pretty about the Holocaust. And this was a great way to depict a horrific time in history. So you can't escape it. You can't escape it. And then another instructor, Melisong Knight, pointed out that there were several books that are in their curriculum that do have vulgar language and violence. This is including Bridge to Terabitha, The Whipping Boy, and To Kill a Mockingbird. But I looked at them and and I have to say, I looked up and yeah, there are rough words and so on, but there's not this massive massacre and killing in these books. That's not in there. There's some roughness, but nothing comparable. There's roughness that an 8th grader can deal with, because 8th graders do like read that stuff. So some of the parents say, look, our kids are watching heavier stuff and so on. Okay, so we can discuss it. That's a reasonable discussion. Is it really, but the question
so
is.
Rabbi,
yeah.
Can I say something?
Go ahead, yeah.
You're reading the cleanup. This was a cleanup on aisle 1 that you are reading here. Why they did this had nothing to do with that cleanup. And the other thing too is, tell me which part of Shakespeare isn't violent, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I don't know what's being
So
read in 8th
the degree,
grade.
we cannot now, because they got caught in a book banning spree, and without looking at the politics, because this is not only mouse that is banned. It's a political decision to ban a certain group.
I'm going to go into that. Yeah, and it's happening on both.
And this is the cleanup. No, sorry,
right.
we're not going to do that moral equivalency.
It's happening on
here.
Left and right. It's happening.
No,
on the
we're
left
not doing that moral equivalency. It's
not
the same thing.
This banning is happening on the left and the right. Here, watch what goes on.
It's not the same thing.
Watch what goes on.
The left is not. What school board on the left is banning books? I'm not talking about individuals. I'm talking about school boards.
Kill a Mockingbird is banned.
Horrible. It shows race relations.
And watch. I'm going to show you something, because now it gets in deep. Watch what happens. So it's true. We don't know the motivations, the underlying. They did talk about Anne Frank, but it's not equivalent, because Anne Frank has this sunny disposition. You don't know the horror that will happen behind it afterwards, right? So, but here's the problem. We are in a period of misteaching of the Holocaust. And I said, so, okay, there was a case in another school board where the librarian called for the books, I think it was in Texas, because they couldn't read the law correctly. The law was vague. So she said, you have to show, when there's a controversy, you have to show both sides. How do you show both sides of the Holocaust? That was right on the right wing. On the left, there was a principal in Florida who refused to have Holocaust taught because he said, well, there are doubts about the historicity. You know, right? We're getting on both sides. We got to admit it. It's coming on both sides. This banning is coming on both sides. So Huckleberry Finn and Kill a Mockingbird are removed from some school curriculum because, well, yeah, they make some African-American students uncomfortable. Even though both books talk and deal with the abuse and suppression of African-Americans. And I'll give you another thing. Talk about Shakespeare. Yeah, in Manhattan, a middle school in Manhattan just pulled the plug on a student production of Merchant of Venice. They're 7th graders. All right, because why? Well, in there, the central point of the play is to portray the Jew as the villain as opposed to the merciful Christian. That's the core purpose of the Merchant of Venice. We got that famous line, if you prick me, do I not bleed? Nice. That's Shakespeare playing, because he likes to play up odd side, the villain's side also. But the main point is the whole point of the play. And we teach Shakespeare, we teach Merchant of Venice. The whole point of the play is the Jew is a villain. Right?
No.
He's still in the curriculum.
But Rabbi, why do we have to politicize
do I not believe
this
the
issue?
Jew gets the last word?
It's a question of age. 8th graders
Oh,
are
okay.
vulnerable.
Yeah. So I don't know what's actually being taught at 8th grade level. I don't know what kind of books actually being taught at the 8th grade level. In high school, I would expect it. At 8th grade level, I don't know. But one thing is good. When you do with banning books, the sale of mouse has gone way up. So now let's go into this thing about banning books in general. So here's where the second hot topic came up because of mouse, and it was brought up in the View. And in the very beginning, Whoopi's taking it on.
So 2 schools are being accused of banning books after one in Washington State pulled To Kill a Mockingbird off their required reading list after complaints from students and parents, including a former black student who said it made her uncomfortable, and a Tennessee school pulled the graphic novel Mouse out of their lessons on the Holocaust because it contained some nudity and some bad language. Personally, I'm shocked because, you know, given the story of Mouse, I'm surprised that that's what made you uncomfortable. The fact that there was some nudity and I mean, it's about the Holocaust, the killing of 6 million people, but that didn't bother you. But the naked.
I'm not sure that they don't use the naked part as a kind of a canard to throw you off from the fact that they don't like history that makes white people look bad.
Okay, so here's the point. So this is our suspicion. They really are white supremacists. Okay, but notice that Whoopi brought up this thing about To Kill a Mockingbird, which is this very significant book, but because the African American is accused of murder, it made some kids feel uncomfortable, so it's pulled, right? So now, but notice she says it's, okay, she talks about white on white, but at this point, it's just passed over. You all doing it amongst yourselves. At this point, nobody responds to it because there was Les Goldberg being facetious or sarcastic. So she's got her style. But we begin to worry that Goldberg is making a mockery of Goldberg, right? When we talk about cultural appropriation, right? People are accused of cultural appropriation, but when you appropriate something Jewish, that's funny. Goldberg, okay. So, but she's making what may be a very good introductory point, but now she steps in the deep end. Okay, and steps on a landmine. So I'm jumping forward. Here's where we get into a fight.
Well, also, if you're going to do this, then let's be truthful about it, because the Holocaust isn't about race. No, it's not about race. No, it's about
a different race.
But it's not about race. It's not about race.
What is it about?
Because it's about man's inhumanity to man. That's what it's about.
But it's about white supremacy. It's about
but
going
it's
after
not. It's not
Jews
about
and gypsies
but these are two white groups of people.
Well, how do we after black people
see them as white?
But you're missing the point. You're missing the point. The minute you turn it into race, it goes down this alley. Let's talk about it for what it is. It's how people treat each other. It's a problem. It doesn't matter if you're black or white, because black, white, Jews, everybody eats each other. So is it, if you're uncomfortable, if you hear about mouse, should you be worried? Should your child say, oh my God, I wonder if that's me? No, that's not what they're gonna say. They're gonna say, I don't wanna be like that.
Well, hopefully.
Well,
now, she has some very important points. I don't want to knock it completely, but this is where she loses it with so much in the Jewish community.
Race, she's wrong.
Right. This question, it's
because
she makes a generic statement that it doesn't matter black or white, because black, white, Jews, everybody eats each other. Well, why are we saying that Jews are being eaten by the Germans because the Jews are eating the Germans? It sort of gives that implication. Well, she's not able to refine this issue correctly. And so she was brought on, was a Steve Colbert at night, and she went double down on it and got in deeper water, and ABC pulled her for 2 weeks. Is she not? No, she's not an anti-Semite. No, I don't think so. She's certainly not denying the Holocaust. She's talking about the severity, but what pulled her down, and she didn't want to go down that path, she said, is that race, in her perspective, is only about white and black. In fact, you listen to one of the other participants say, well, it's about white supremacy. Nazi Germany was not about white supremacy. It was about German supremacy over Poles who are white, over Russians who are white. It's specifically West European supremacy over everybody else. But they had no white supremacy issue when it came to being allies with Japan, yellow. They had no problem with that. So and I know what happens. It is that each of us, well, we see the pain point from our pain point. We don't always see the other person's pain point. And I think that may be part of the problem. It creates the impression that what happens to Jews is merely a continuation of same cruelty of humanity against humanity. I'm reminded of a quote about families attributed to Tolstoy, who said, all happy families are alike, but each tragic family is different. And it is very difficult then to generalize from one's perspective to another's perspective. Each pain is important, is legitimate, but how do we identify where is and what are the key points that distinguish it? And we hit a slippery slope. That's what that's famous moral slippery slope. It is that the longest running persecution of a single people across multiple civilizations become just another example of white on white. And that is where she stepped in deep doo-doo. She's not an anti-Semite, and I don't think she's that ignorant either. But I think it is a widely held perspective, which is that my problem is unique, but yours is run of the mill. And I'd sort of put what if scenario? What if somebody had said of the genocide of Tutsis by Hutus, or of Igbos by Hausa, it was just black on black, or that the Turkish massacre of Armenians was just brown on brown, right? It's, you have to be so, you land yourself in such deep doo. So we get the sense that with Jews, we have that old joke, what am I, chopped liver? Right? It's there, everybody ignores it. Now, look at this, how we see things, how media see things. This from Honest Reporting is that took the FBI Crime Data Explorer, breaking down crimes, hate crimes by victims, groups of victims, and then how the media covered that same group, how many articles per incident. And so they said, look, articles per incident, on every incident against Muslims, there were 5 articles written. On every incident against Blacks, 3. On Hispanics, 2. On Jews, 1.5. Interesting on sexual orientation, where I would have thought there would have been more written about attacks on gay, lesbian, transgender. Not that much focus in the press. Asian, right? Not much focus. For all that we were worried about a wave of Asian crimes, not much reported. Then we go, well, here's the actual proportion, though. The actual proportion of incidents per capita, and again, I'm not sure exactly what number they're using per capita out of what, but it's for Jews, 12, the highest number of incidents reported. Whereas it's almost the lowest in the media, in the FBI reports, the very highest. Asians, a little bit less in proportion of incidents. This way. Muslims, half of the incidents against Muslims than there are of Jews, and yet they're 3 times the number of reports, media reports about it. Black, 6 incidents, let's say 6, and there's 3, right? Hispanic, very little, actually very little incidents against Hispanic, much more reportage. Sexual orientation, this I thought was interesting. The sexual orientation, quite a number of incidents. That's a large group, and yet very little reportage. There, I'm surprised. What's the whole point, though? We come out, I'm telling you, we come out as chopped liver. That's what happens.
Hispanics on the border are being really hurt right now.
What?
I mean, Hispanics coming in from the countries that we installed dictators, right-wing dictators, are coming into this country and being pushed away after we ruined their country. That we did, the fact. that we installed right-wing dictators, and that's what they're running from. So everybody
So
can relate to that. And
we're paying the price for
what we
supporting
did-
right-wing and in
Yeah.
other countries.
Right.
And so how does that relate to us here? And
Isn't
we've also
any-
supported left-wing sometimes, depends on
Right,
what's valuable.
But isn't any talk of the Holocaust good? Isn't just bringing it and making it controversial what Whoopi's doing and what the Tennessee school board or whoever school board that, aren't they both helping? Aren't they both keeping the Holocaust memory alive?
There's a
What do
good
you
point
think,
to
Joe?
that.
You know,
There actually is a good point to it, because it's an important debate. I think what we're having here is, if it's being aired properly, you're getting a good debate. I don't think, I don't believe in cancel culture. I know people were canned for much less dangerous statements, and banning and canceling really deepens the divide. You kick Joe Rogan off Spotify today, you're going to have 2 Spotifys tomorrow, and neither will hear the other side. You're going down a bottomless rabbit hole. And by the way, Joe Rogan is boycotted by artists on Spotify, but Farrakhan gets a pass. Nobody said I'm leaving Spotify, even though Spotify carries all of his very anti-Jewish speeches. It's a bottomless hole. And I think the discussion is important. I think in a way, for Whoopi to have raised it up, even if she did it clumsily, it raises an important discussion. So here, like the question about, is anti-Semitism a form of racism?
well,
Are we Jews a race?
but she said that it was not about race. She said it was not about race.
That's it, because in her perspective, race is black and white.
What was it? What
That's from
was
her-
it?
from her
If it
perspective.
wasn't- If it wasn't a race, then what was it?
Oh, okay, good. So here's a good question. By the way, Joe, I suggest I'm going to send Joe, we're going to helicopter Joe into Tennessee to the county and talk to these, because you may be very effective for the kids. So anyway,
Well,
race,
I
race
just
we all
spoke,
know,
I
just
just
we
spoke to
should
some
know.
kids.
Yeah.
I just spoke to some kids in Kansas.
In Kansas.
Yeah.
There we go. That's just as good as Tennessee. Okay. So race as a term is so highly loaded. It was the theory 100 years ago and more, end of the 19th century, in which humanity was seen on the basis of Darwin. I follow the science on the basis of, I'm always suspicious when people say follow the science. It's so easy to abuse. So there's an evolution. There's obviously then the 3 major races: the black, the white, the black, the yellow, the major races, and others variations. And obviously then in the theory of race, then the dominant race is the white race, and then the yellow race, then the black race, right? So it was used, as I say, it was the science in its day to justify the rule of one group of humans over another. And for example, the European version was the white man's burden. But it's not unique to Europeans. The Chinese had what they called the mandate of heaven, because they had a right to rule over other peoples also. They had a mandate, so it's very common. And whoever is a despised race, quote unquote, varies from culture to culture. In India, it was all other castes over Dalits, who probably were the original people in India before the Indo-European, Indo-Aryans took over India, just as they swept into Iran, as they swept into Europe. Same peoples, same language groups. England abolished slavery of Africans in 1833, but they let the Irish die of famine. The French celebrated Josephine Baker, and she's even in the Pantheon in the 20s and 30s. They betrayed their Jews under the Vichy. Right, so this idea of race is very, very flexible. And so we must talk in race in terms of seeing people as existing in silos. And one has nothing to do with another. That's part of it.
But what happened in the Holocaust is nothing in the history ever happened something like this.
Right, because what happened in the Holocaust was the outcome of this social Darwinism. It went to the fullest extent. And by the way, there's an overlap between the American Jim Crow people and the early German ultranationalists. one learned from the other about, well, you got unwanted people, you isolate them, separate them. Unfortunately, there is this overlap. So what we really have is that there's more in common on this theory of race than people like Whoopi understand. So what happened about Jews? There's German theoreticians of race, not just Germans, French, one of the first theoreticians, Gobineau, Frenchman, taking statistical measures of people of all backgrounds, but particularly Jews, skull shape, round shape, long shape, narrow shape, body size, body shapes, nose lengths. All of these are trying to come up with a categorization of people that I could identify by race, right? We don't think of Jews as being identifiable by race so much because, well, Jews are lighter skinned, but everybody knows the idea of a Yiddish apunim, or as Sarah Silverman would say, a Jew face. There was in East Europe certainly an identifiable Jew face. One could identify a Jew from. My mother survived because she didn't have a Jew face. She didn't have Sarah Silverman's Jew face. That's how she survived. So Jews were visibly different in certain areas. Just as also in Iraq, Iraqi Jews looked different and spoke differently from the Arab Jews. Yemenite Jews, even though from the outside look the same, were slightly different from the Yemenites, right? Yemenite Arabs, right? So in our defense, we Jews also did the same thing. We rushed and authored papers, research. The nose is not a Jewish nose. The skull type, there's this type, this type. We were denying that there was anything in common other than our culture, nothing identifying us as being from the same source. We were too different, and that's how we were trying to defend ourselves. But it didn't matter, really didn't change any anti-Semites' minds. And when you talk about race, Black Americans who went to Europe, like W.B. Du Bois, at the beginning of at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, where they went to European academies, they were shocked to see that they were accepted, but the Jews were regarded as inferiors. He writes about it. Tables are turned. By the way, when we talk about Jews as a race, there's no such thing as race. That's an artificial category. That's been debunked. But there are strands, there are familial strands, there are some, we may say, common patterns in DNA, so we can trace people's origin. We are able to do that. And with Jews, for example, there's what we're talking in biology of phenotype and genotype. Phenotype is what you see on the outside. What you see on the outside is not what you get on the inside of a plant or of an animal, right? You talk about the way DNA works or the way genes work. So the phenotype, we tend to look like the people around us. But the genotype, some of the underlying genes are distinct. So no matter where we're from, German, Polish, Balkan, Moroccan, Iraqi, Yemen, mostly the genotype is like peoples of the Levant, where we originated. Mostly like Samaritans, who never left, children of Israel who never left the land of Israel, right? So there is again, not the term race, but a historic trace for most Jews, showing a chain, biological as well as cultural, right? It could be a loaded issue, by the way. We know this is very important in terms of health studies, medical studies. Where is your ancestry from? Because then we can help trace and prevent diseases. But it can be used against. That's also a danger. So it may be, I'll talk about Whoopi, it may very well be beneficial because it helps us bring clarity to this issue of race, both as it's played out in America and against Jews worldwide, right? They're different, the same but different, right? And that's very important for us to clarify. So here, yeah, we are worried, we're anxious, but it's not the end of the world. Far more disruptive, far more dangerous, far more deadly is this from Amnesty International. So notice all this is happening, by the way, it all comes out around International Holocaust Memorial Day. The book was banned, it happened to be International Holocaust Memorial Day. Then comes Amnesty International, and on International Holocaust Memorial Day, this is what they released, and the day could not have been more auspicious. Israel's apartheid against Palestinians, cruel system of domination, crime against humanity. crime against humanity. And this is part of the executive summary. In this way, Amnesty International demonstrated Israel imposed a system of oppression and domination over Palestinians wherever it exercised control over the enjoyment of their rights across Israel and the occupied Palestinian territory, OPT, and with regard to Palestinian refugees. That means inside Israel, the Israeli citizens are cruelly oppressed. The Arabs of Israel are cruelly oppressed in the same way as in the Palestinian territories. They are cruelly oppressed, as in the Gaza Strip, they're cruelly oppressed, as being forced to be refugees in Lebanon, where they're not allowed to be citizens, they are cruelly oppressed, as in Syria, where Palestinian refugees camps are bombed, they are cruelly oppressed by Israel. Okay, I'm getting carried away. The segregationists conduct in a systematic and highly institutionalized manner through laws, policy, and practice, all intended to prevent Palestinians from claiming and enjoying equal rights to Jewish Israelis within Israel and the occupied territories, and thus intend to oppress and dominate the Palestinian people. Has been cemented by a legal regime that controls, by negating the rights of Palestinian refugees residing outside Israel and the occupied territories to return to their homes, right? The right of return. And so, conclusion, Israel has perpetrated the international wrong of apartheid as a human rights violation of public international law. And it goes on, all the Israeli administration from top to bottom is involved in this act of apartheid, crime against humanity of apartheid under both the Apartheid Convention and the Rome Statute. Okay, so
stupid left-wing people are saying it amounts to that.
Sorry, say it again.
Stupid left-wing people are saying it amounts to that, but it's not apartheid, and Amnesty International knows it.
Oh, so what they do? Exactly. They say it's apartheid, big bold letters, apartheid, 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 big bold letters, and then they say, having spilled their venom, it then backtracks. It does not seek to argue whether any system of oppression is the same or analogous to segregation, oppression, domination as perpetrated in South Africa in 1948-94. So apartheid is South Africa's system. You use that name and there's no, we don't mean the same thing. Like a snake oil salesman, they label the accusation of apartheid and then they qualify, so they can never be held accountable for it. I didn't mean it. I said it, but I didn't mean it. So Israel is a Nazi state, but it's not a Nazi state. It is apartheid, but it's not apartheid. This is Orwell. And you can have your cake and eat it too. Now, what does it mean when you label apartheid? Even if you say don't mean it, you put it on par with Nazi Germany. It is part of what is called lawfare. It's an approach to use international law to destroy Israel because the combined might of all the Arab and Muslim world couldn't do it militarily. So it opens every Israeli soldier to potential prosecution by the International Criminal Court, just for being an Israeli soldier, subject to potential arrest in any country should they visit in the future. By the way, the United States is also deathly afraid of this International Criminal Court for the same reason.
And both don't subscribe to the International Criminal Court.
What?
We don't care. We are not interested. Neither of us are interested in what the International Criminal Court or the UN have to say.
Right. And for that reason, for that very reason, because it's a double-edged sword. It's very nice to have this. And I wish that, you know, what was the guy in Serbia responsible for the mass killings, right? He should have been subject, right? But it's a double-edged sword. So the implications, if Israel is an apartheid regime, it must be banned, censored, blockaded, and disarmed, and then dismantled. And they call for the immediate return of all the descendants of Palestinian refugees. And remember, the Palestinian refugees never died. They were never removed from any of the rolls, from any records. Children, grandchildren, half, right? Okay. Which would mean in one election day, the overthrow of the Knesset. You just fly everybody in one day, overthrow the Knesset, and that's it. So I go to Amnesty USA website, and what I see is a gung-ho platform taken from Islamic Jihad, Fatah, Hamas, PLA, the PFLP, and the Islamic Republic of Iran. Any of them could have made this website without an apology. It's what I find electronic intifada, Armando Weiss. This is their website. Oh, here's how they portray it now. They're putting up. All right, the crime of apartheid takes place in inhuman or inhumane acts, civilian populations oppressed, systematic oppression, domination, establishment, maintaining dominance, widespread systematic terror. And that's beautiful. This picture of Israel, the occupied territories, barbed wire, black on yellow. And then you have this picture of, right, of refugees in Gaza Strip after the war, poor people. That they never will show you the beautiful beautiful villas that the heads of Hamas have built.
In Gaza.
They'll never show you that picture. This is the picture they'll show you of Palestinian life in apartheid. And they talk about Israeli civilian. This is what is denied home demolitions and forced evictions. Oh, this is the problem for Israeli Arabs. Fragmental separation of Palestinian families. Okay. Violence under siege. Violence under siege. Who's being sieged? Who's being sieged? Right? So you have this idea. The Israelis are constantly shooting rockets. They're constantly blowing up houses. This is how Amnesty USA portrays it. So there's no presentation or explaining the background, the history of Palestinians, nothing about the Arab wars and attacks on Jews, nothing about massacre of Jews in Hebron, nothing about the massacre of convoys to Jerusalem, none of that stuff. Nothing about formal acts of war, nothing about acts of terror, nothing about bombing of Israeli, Jewish, and Arab civilians. It's all a one-way street. No nod to the mass expulsion of Jews from Muslim countries all across the Middle East. So I asked myself, where does Amnesty International come from? And then I realized I go back to the 70s because the United Nations in the 70s under Soviet and Muslim state dominance declared Zionism as racism. And they got rid of it later because they were stupid. But a lot of these NGOs are heirs to the old Soviet Union's useful idiots. Fronts. There were these front groups for the old Communist Party. Well, you engage certain types into your PR system. And what happens when you fall? Like the Soviet Union fell. They just stopped believing in it. The useful idiots didn't fall. They're still there. They just need a different cause. This is a personality that's looking for a cause to latch onto. Must find some horror, must find somebody to blame the entire world on, or to blame one party in the world on. And so this is where they come in. So here's some responses. So I'm just going to go to the State Department, because this is a State Department response after this article. Let's see if I can get it. Come up, here we go.
South African,
Of this report,
Desmond Tutu rejected.
and do you share those concerns about the situation there in Israel?
Well, so I mean, you know that as a general matter, we don't offer public comprehensive evaluations of reports by outside groups. We have our own rigorous standards and processes for making determinations on potential human rights abuses, for documenting what we see take place around the world, including on an annual basis in the Human Rights Report. What I will say, however, is that we reject the view that Israel's actions constitute apartheid. The department's own reports have never used such terminology. We are committed to promoting respect for human rights in Israel and the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. We have an enduring partnership with Israel, and we discuss a wide range of issues with our Israeli counterparts, including those related to human rights.
Okay, so now, and then, so you see, the United States officially rejects that report. It wasn't just the United States that rejected the report. It was the European governments. Even the Irish, who don't have good terms with Israel, very, very pro-Palestinian, rejected the use of the word apartheid. Rejected. They were asked about it specifically. I saw in the interview. So now what else about the United States?
I've had an opportunity to speak about this with our Israeli counterparts. They have conveyed their objections to the report. As we've noted, we don't offer our own public comprehensive evaluations of reports, but we certainly reject the label that has been attached to this. When speaking about Israel, one other point here, we think that it is important, as the world's only Jewish state, that the Jewish people must not be denied their right to self-determination, and we must ensure there isn't a double standard being applied.
Okay, so very important point. From the position of the United States, the Jewish people have a right to exist as a people. They have a right to a nationality and a nation state, because that's the core point of the battle against Israel. Jewish people are not a people. They're European colonial settlers put there to impose European and American power in the Middle East. and have no right to a state. That's the core. That's the core. You ask Abbas, that's the core of his thinking. So here's some other reactions. This one, Professor Kantorovich, he's professor of law at George Mason University. There are reasons to be concerned about apartheid, but it's not inside Israel. All these policies are practiced in the West Bank and Gaza by the Palestinian Authority against Jews. The Israel apartheid meme is not just a lie, it's an inversion of the truth. In all areas controlled by Israel, Jews and Arabs mix openly. In all areas under PA jurisdiction are Jew-free. Palestinian law makes selling land to Jews a crime punishable by death, often without trial. South African government used death squads against blacks. The Palestinian government pays terrorists for killing Jews. In all the territories controlled by Palestinian government, Jews are prevented from worshiping at their holy sites despite exclusive provisions in the Oslo Accords requiring Palestinian Authority to protect such worship. Okay, so I've been driving in Israel, there's parts A, B, and C. You go to those parts, what is it called, part C, are only to the Palestinians. And there's a big sign saying Israeli citizens, put up by the Israeli government, Israeli citizens are not allowed in here by the Palestinians without special arrangements. Not allowed, not allowed. Right? So the Palestinians complain, well, we can't just go into the Israeli side. Jews cannot go. And even Israeli Arabs cannot just easily go in to the other side. It's a two-way street. So only Jews are denied a Jewish state. This is from Clifford May, Foundation of Defense of Democracies. UN has no problem with nations declaring themselves Arab, 23 members, or Islamic, 57 members. In other words, when Jews say it's a Jewish state, that is Jewish supremacy. If Jews say it is a Jewish state, that is religious theocratic state. But 57 states can be Islamic, that's okay. 23 can say Arab, that's okay. In fact, all the Arab states are supposed to be one unitary nation in Arabic nationalism theory. Palestine was supposed to be part of this broad Arab state that would arise after the fall of Turkey. That's what they wanted. There was no Palestine, there was Arab, Middle East. Except the Syrians wanted to control, and the Lebanese wanted to control, and the Egyptians wanted to control. But there was no Palestinian bucking for control in 1948. There wasn't. There was no move by the Palestinians to establish a Palestinian state in 1948 when the United Nations gave them that possibility, because they looked for the wiping out of the Jewish state with no compromise. But the Amnesty report doesn't mention that. So I continue with controversy. Zionism merely holds that the Jewish people, like other peoples, have a right to self-determination. So Jews living in a slice of their ancient homelands, the Judean hills, the desert, Jewish quarter of Jerusalem, practicing the same religion, speaking the same language as did their ancestors, are regarded as racists, according to Amnesty International. But to anybody who's visited Israel, obvious Israelis come in all colors, including Black Jews, Ethiopia, brown Jews from India. Most Israeli Jews of Middle Eastern, North African descent. Israel's not segregated, not in universities, hospitals, judiciary benches, beaches, or government. Very significant that now, for the first time in many years, we have an Arab party in the Israeli government, in the Israeli coalition, and it is a traditionalist Arab Muslim party. And the head of the party, Mansour Abbas, said Israel's not an apartheid state. That's the wrong term. He said, we got our problems. We're pushing for our rights. We have issues, but it's not apartheid. That's from the head of one of the most important political movements representing Arabs in Israel.
Now, Amnesty International is failing miserably on the border of the U.S. and Mexico. We're not able to give these people amnesty, and that's a horrible thing, and that's a left-wing thing that people left-wing like, and Amnesty International is failing at it miserably. So they just think, well, let's distract our failures and turn attention and just pick on the Jews.
That is one of the complaints. That is one of the complaints. So, that they need something to keep attention. So here, guy from South Africa. South Africa coming in. Huh?
They need to keep the donations coming in.
That's you'll see. That's one of the complaints. Yeah. So this guy from South Africa originally is Samuel Hyde. I grew up in South Africa. Afrikaners were Dutch colonizers who took over a country which had no claim. Nothing in South Africa's apartheid system remotely resembles Israel, where Jews are indigenous to the land. Much of Amnesty draws on the work of watchdog groups based within Israel, which is something that would have been impossible under a true apartheid regime. In apartheid South Africa, everything that challenged the system was deemed illegally. Tens of thousands of people were in prison for such acts. You know, in Israel, you have to plant a bomb to be arrested. In South Africa, it was enough to talk about it to be arrested. Amnesty relied on information provided by at least 4 groups of the 6 NGOs designated by Israel's terrorist organizations for the close ties with the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. PFLP was among the Palestinian movements, the most extreme of the movements. I think it was George Habash was their head, far, far, far off the deep end, even from the PLO of Arafat. So the biggest and loudest response is that more and more Arab countries are now happy to deal with Israel. What's the point of Amnesty writing a report other than attracting a few days of publicity, a hook for fundraising? See, Yanni, just what you said, a hook for fundraising. The NGOs know the media is their metaphor and have learned, like the Palestinians, whoever gets the message out first of propaganda war wins. But Israel has only grown stronger despite the demonization. Look no further than the Abraham Accords. It's ironic the Arabs don't believe or care about the apartheid life, but Westerners do. So why are we concerned? I mean, and here's a good point. Why are we concerned? On Whoopi Goldberg on the issue of race and Jews, I think it's a very healthy discussion. It has a very important side to it. Even on the book issue in Tennessee, we can have a healthy discussion. But here, Amnesty, what happens? With Amnesty and with other groups like this, right? All right, they're going to get their fundraisers. I'm worried about our young Jews, and this is what's coming across in college campuses, where the groups like Jewish student JD, Jewish Voices for Peace, or Students for Justice in Palestine, used by Palestinian organizations, pro-Palestinian organizations, used by CAIR, manipulating the students, manipulating the faculty. We have fights going on now where the student leaderships are banning Jewish groups because they're identified with Zionism, and the universities overturning the ban and the students coming back and suing. We have terrible, terrible situations. And this is feeding into it. And that's why they're doing this. So for me, our only position, I never apologize for staying alive. That's going to be my position. I never apologize for staying. So I'm in touch with a group of young Jews. They're trying to work on incentives to get young Jews to Israel on birthright and trying to get Hill involved in it. So I'm going to see what they're coming up with. It's organized around the young woman that I had speak for us on Yom Kippur. And then for us as Jews, we have to double down on our Jewishness. We do have to double down on our Jewishness.
We gotta stay in their face.
That's it. What's that song? Fools to the right of us, jokers to the left. Here I am stuck in the middle with you.
Mm.
Okay. Jews of all kinds and flavors, orientations, but we do want to know what do we have? What do we mean? What are we about? So when I come back after Pesach, I'm going to run a series on, what are we about? It's sort of a Judaism 101. So even though we know what we know, repeat it, we'll go over it again. That's my answer.
Rabbi,
yeah, go ahead.
I would like to, if it's a group of people repeat the topic over and over and over and over and over, and other people listen constantly to that, that topics become the truth for a group of people. And that's the way that we are confronting the problem now. They are repeating a lie over and over and over and over, and younger generations and other groups listen constantly to that. They take this as a truth without any discussion. So the question is, although logically we can defend of it, how you can defend against this onslaught of propaganda going over and over?
It is hard. It is hard. I've got. What was Hitler's strategy? The big lie. the Jew stabbed us in the back. You just repeat it over and over and over again. I don't have to give any proof. I just have to repeat it. And there's the smoking gun. Where there's smoke, there must be a gun. There's smoke, there must be a fire. And you're right. So dialogue, nice dialogue doesn't work. On the mouse issue, we can dialogue. On the race issue, we can dialogue. That's fine. But on this amnesty attack, I think the only response is actually is attack, which is we should be having our students going whenever an issue is raised on a student being banned or an organization being banned. There was something, some university Jewish student was not allowed to participate in a LGBTQ conference of some kind because he supported Israel. Whenever it happens, I want to see our Jewish students getting up and marching. I want to see marching across campuses and saying, we will not be killed. We will not be put in the gas chambers anymore. We will not be intimidated. I want to see that. I want to see that because that is what the public understands. When you take action without being violent, I don't need a truckers convoy blocking Ottawa, but we have to be very, very visible, very present. And I think that's the only way.
Rabbi,
kids are very visible and present.
what is the response of Israel for the position of an Amnesty International?
They said go throw it in the garbage can. That's basically what their response was.
Yeah.
The problem was that Amnesty,
Garbage can is not enough.
yeah, what makes it difficult is Amnesty has in the past played an important role in highlighting. For example, Amnesty was very important in highlighting the troubles of Jews in the Soviet Union in its day. And there's, in fact, in that conference with the spokesman for the State Department, one of the questions was, but you do take stuff from Amnesty. It says, yeah, true. Where we find useful material, we do use it and reference it. So there are things they do right. The problem is that, as Yoni, as you said, they wither on the vine without controversy.
They want to raise money from rich Arabs now, I think.
They want to what?
Raise money from rich Arabs.
Rich Arabs. Yeah, what are they doing for Venezuela?
When rich Arabs hear something anti-Israel, they just donate money to whatever organization.
But I think it's going to be less. I think what's going to happen, there's going to be less money. Israeli business is good for Arabs. That's what's happening. But what did Amnesty write about Venezuela? I don't know. What have they written? It's the Chinese. They're very careful about the Chinese. We know that. The Uyghurs, they keep their hands off.
What about Brazil? What are they doing against this guy?
Brazil, I don't know. It's a good question. Well, Bolsonaro, they probably are doing stuff against Bolsonaro because he's a right-winger. I don't know. Do they prefer sides? Do they play sides? I don't know enough about what they're doing. Do they pick, do they pick their favorite tyrants? I don't know. But I think it's just, we have to double down and for our Jewish kids, be very, very visible on campus. And
our kids are visible. Our kids went out and did when the kids were putting in cages, the immigrants, we had kids out there, never again. Those were our kids.
Yeah. But how about for us?
World Watch.
Huh? Yeah. Yeah, you're right. For everybody else. How about for us?
Now we have our kids marching on the street saying no genocide. Our kids. We keep them young.
Yeah. But now they have to stand up for ourselves. And so we're not the chopped liver here.
Jewish World Watch is standing up for ourselves by disputing the genocide.
They are good. Okay, good. That's important. That's important.
We're being subtle. It's a little subtle, but
so it's not time. We're past the time to be subtle.
The kids are saying no genocide. Everybody knows what they're saying. No genocide on the border. No genocide in Rwanda.
Now we have to.
We do have to double down, though. That's the point. And we are doubling down.
Yeah.
Jewish World Watch and Never never again. Organization.
Yeah, okay, it's very important. We've got to see what happens. But the biggest thing, our own Jewish kids, can't let them be intimidated or
They
ashamed.
have to do the doubling down. We need to send them out there
Yeah,
and march.
well, that's it. Yeah, you're right.
Really, we get it. They need to learn. Our kids need to learn, and they need to bring other kids in.
Yeah.
And they need to help other people. And that was the idea of Big Sunday. And now Big Sunday is not even Jewish anymore. Just, that was just so funny.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. No. So,
Yeah.
as they say, what's in the news? The meeting of Jews. So what else is new?
Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't have to accept it.
Not at all.
Okay. Listen, next week we'll have fun. Next week we'll have fun. We'll have a good time. Okay, with Jerry Cutler. And so to everybody, Shabbat Shalom. And everything good. Okay.
Shalom.
Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
But